It is 1 a.m. and I'm doing the video on Voxtur financials. July 17, which was about an hour ago, was the deadline for Voxtur to release financials. So I'm going to go through the financials here and try to see if if the business improved, what's going on. This is my second take. I'm doing this video. If you're wondering why the first one was deleted, because I made a mistake. When you look at the financials, you can see revenue of 151 million, but then on the bottom, it's this huge loss, 212 million. And that looks really bad. And why is this loss so big? Well, if you look at the below the line, there's something called impairment loss of 185 million. Impairment loss is they got a new auditor, and the new auditor decided to do an impairment loss, which is a non-cash charge. And when you acquire a company and you pay a certain price for a company, you have to book it somehow. And whatever you can count, like equipment, the things that you can count, if it's only this much, and with technology companies, there's very little of tangible things. So the difference between tangible things and the price is goodwill. And because the transactional volumes significantly declined in the real estate space when the Fed raised interest rates, the auditor was like, well, the transactions are down, your business is down, you paid this much for whatever you acquired, we need to do an impairment charge, which might be reversed in the future. But right now, we're doing an impairment charge, and that's why you see 185 million impairment charge, which makes the loss look so horrible. But even without that, you look at the loss from operations, it still looks horrible, right? For almost 48 million. But this doesn't tell us the whole story, because what we're interested in is the fourth quarter. We're interested to find out whether things are progressing and getting better, and this doesn't show us this. And also comparing it to 2021 is useless, because, I mean, Voxtur is completely different now with all these companies that they acquired. So let's look at the quarters. So this is partial income statement all the way to loss from operations. And this is your 2022, and then I broke it down into fourth quarters, because the four quarters, because the fourth quarter wasn't listed there. It was just the 2022. So I looked up the first 3 quarters and I took the difference to figure out what it was. So what we can see from quarters is that the revenue for the first quarter was 40.8 million, then it was 38, and then third quarter was 35.5 million, and then the fourth quarter, it grew, right? It grew by about 1 million. So the revenue improved by about 1 million. But if you look at the gross profit improved much more than 1 million, almost 2 million. And why? Well, because margins went up. Gross profit margin went from 38.2% to 42%. That's very good. We went from having margin of 34%, went down to 33%, and then it started recovering to 38, and now it's at 42. Anytime you start reaching close to 50%, that's amazing. That's amazing business. And we will get there because now Blue Water is getting better. We're going to have more technology. And also, Gary mentioned that he's looking to monetize the non-core business, low margin businesses, the service businesses, which drag down this gross profit margin. So don't be surprised this number to be way over 50%, 60, even 70% down the road. But the trend is that it's improving, right? So revenues are up, margins are up. But now the loss from operations for the quarter, it grew from 9.8 million to 15 million. And I suspect, I mean, the general and administrative didn't go, they went up by $1.5 million. The selling and business development went down, pretty much stayed the same. And then the technology and operations went up, pretty much more than doubled. So I'm not surprised to see that, because they acquired especially Blue Water, and the revenues didn't materialize from that yet, but they acquired an entity with certain expenses, right? So the expenses grew faster. Now, what's interesting about this Q4, which this income statement doesn't show, and we have to go into cash flow statement for that. So this is the cash flow statement. And then again, this is 2002, this is Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And this is, so the loss, huge loss, right? That shows negative 212. But on a cash flow statement, what cash flow statement does, it makes adjustments for non-cash items. So like an impairment loss gets added back because it's a non-cash item, right? So you add it back, and then you add back other things like amortization of intangible assets, and then you subtract other things, right? And then at the end of this, or the first portion of the cash flow from operating activities, you have cash generated or used in operating activities. Here, the wording is used because it's negative. So for the year 2022, it's negative 22 million, okay? But when you break it down into quarters, Q1, Q2, Q3, you will see something interesting. You will see that in Q4, the cash flow from operations was positive 10.7 million. 10.7 million, positive. So it was negative for the first 3 quarters, and then it was positive 10.7 million for the fourth quarter. And then if you go down to adjusted EBITDA, for 2022 was negative 8.7 million, and look at the improvement that happened through the last 3 quarters. In the second quarter, was adjusted EBITDA was negative 4 million. And then it was cut down to negative 1.4 million. And now it's pretty much cut down to 0 on adjusted EBITDA basis. So revenues are up, margins are up, cash flow from operating activities is positive 10.7 million. Adjusted EBITDA is pretty much break even. If it wasn't for these additional expenses here, this would have looked really, really good. But what I will say about these expenses is that they're pretty much gone now, because Gary was not the CEO during the fourth quarter. He became the CEO recently, and he started cutting and cutting and cutting. I believe he said he cut the expenses by like 40% or something like this. So those expenses that you see here, they're already gone. They're already cut. And the revenues are going to keep growing because now they have Blue Water really, really picking up steam. They have new products that they released, right? That insure product, other products that they keep releasing. They're signing up more clients, big clients. Remember the press releases. So the revenues are going to grow. Margins are going to continue expanding, while the expenses are going to be cut way more under control than what is shown here. So it will be interesting. Like overall, the report, the financials look scary, but then when you look at them deeper, you realize that, hey, revenues grew, margins improved, expenses were much more, but those expenses are gone now. And then when you go into the cash flow statement, you realize, whoa, cash flow from operating activities in Q4 was very, very positive, 10.7 million, and adjusted EBITDA was pretty much break even. And then he's in the middle of monetizing the non-core business assets, which have low margins. So that's going to drive margins more. But whatever he gets from that is going to be used to pay down debt significantly. So anyway, these are my thoughts at 1 a.m. In the morning, I plan to do an interview with him, with Gary, to get more color on this. But for now, I'm going to bed.